Hello, everyone, and welcome. I would like to now call the December 6th, 2022 Longmont City Council regular session to order. Before we start, I would like to say that the COVID infection rate, according to Boulder County, has been raised to high. Masks are not mandatory, but if you feel that you need to wear one, please do. We have a lot of people who are getting ill. So with that, you can, at home, you can watch the meeting on the Agenda Management portal on the City Council's website. You can also watch it on the city YouTube channel at Longmont YouTube. You can also watch it through the public media website at longmontpublicmedia.org/watch, and also on Comcast channels 8 or 880. Dawn, can we have the roll call, please?
Mayor Peck.
Present.
Councilmember Hidalgo Faring.
Here.
Councilmember Martin.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez.
Here.
Councilmember Waters. Here. Councilmember Yarborough.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Stand for the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So anyone wishing to speak at first call, public invited to be heard, need to add their name, his or her name, to the list outside the council chambers. Only those on the list will be heard at the first public invited to be heard. Speakers who do not place their name on the list will still have the opportunity to speak during the final call, public invited to be heard. If there is anything, we don't have anything on second reading tonight, but if we did, you would add your name to the list and specify which item you would like to speak to. Each speaker has 3 minutes, and if you would please state your name and address. Dawn, are there any agenda revisions tonight?
I don't have any
Thank
revisions.
you. Do we have a report from you, City Manager Harold? Great, then we're going to get on to the reason we're here tonight, which is to administer the oath of office to our newly elected at-large council member, Sean McCoy. Congratulations, welcome. Come take your seat. It's great to finally have a full council going into next year. It's great. So now we're at first call, public invited to be heard. Don't forget to state your name and address, please. The first one on the list is Elliot Moore.
Hello, my name is Elliot Moore. I am the music director and conductor of the Longmont Symphony Orchestra, and my address is 4480 North 109th Street in Lafayette. Let me first express my gratitude to City Council and the City of Longmont for including the Center of the Performing Arts in the Quality of Life Initiative. The proposed Center for the Performing Arts is projected to positively impact the local economy in its first year alone, with earnings at almost $3.5 million. If it does not exist, these dollars will not be seen in our community. But rather than discussing what would be lost economically, I would like to discuss the loss that would occur for our youth if this center does not come to fruition. The youth of our community will never have access to this level of the arts in their lifetime without these facilities. Last weekend, the Longmont Symphony Orchestra welcomed economically challenged families to come to our final dress rehearsal of Tchaikovsky's holiday masterpiece, The Nutcracker. This was a free performance for these underserved families and their children. We had around 500 people at this event. The following day, we had our annual General Nutcracker. This is a sensory-friendly performance for our neurodiverse community members and people with disabilities who have traditionally felt shunned at live performances. These tickets were at a significantly reduced price of $10 per person, and we consistently receive feedback from the attendees of our sensory-friendly Nutcracker that this is one of the few times during the year when they feel that they can come to a live performance without judgment or prejudice. We offer them a safe space to be a family during the holidays. The other day, I mentioned to somebody that I conducted these different performances and then went on to conduct other performances for sold-out crowds of 1,325 people. They seemed to be in disbelief. Where could this even happen, they asked. And it's hard to imagine. Sold-out crowds screaming for the Longmont Symphony Orchestra. A mother moved to tears because this is the first time in years that they could go out to experience the holidays as a family and not feel rejected because of how her son's autism presents itself. I extended an invitation to all of you on City Council to come and see for yourselves the extraordinary work and transformation in culture that is happening. But the real question is, how could the proposed Center for the Performing Arts synthesize the youth and educational offerings? I offer a few thoughts. What about subsidies for underprivileged youth? What about seats being set aside to aid in creating equity for marginalized Longmonters? What about a mandate for every production to include educational components? What about engaging visual and musical art teachers? What about collaborations that could exist with Front Range Community College? This new center will ensure that all the children in Longmont will have better access to the performing arts in order to enrich their lives. But like that $3.5 million that won't be seen if we don't construct it, the youth of our community will never have access to this level of the arts in their lifetime without creating these facilities. Thousands of performing arts supporters in Longmont envision creating a center that fosters shared experiences. The story of who we are deserves to be told by these children. Thank you.
Thank you, Elliot.
Thank you.
The next person is Richard Jude.
I'm Richard Jude. I live at 4042 Hawthorne Circle here in Longmont. Congratulations, Mr. McCoy, on your new seat here. Tonight you're discussing a number of long-standing proposed civic improvements and figuring out how citizens themselves would prioritize them. If these civic projects require voter approval, it stands to reason that a $4.3 million giveaway to an out-of-state company deserves the same level of attention. I agree with Manager Dominguez's statement that there should be a robust community involvement to hear what the community is interested in, and also with Councilmember Martin's enthusiasm for a performing arts complex. There's a finite pool of financial resources, and one way or another, the proposed hotel is dipping into the same pool as the items on your list tonight. I don't mean to gloss over the difference between incurring bonded indebtedness and giving away city-owned property, but to the voters, it looks pretty much the same. It's Longmont money the council is charged with husbanding. The hotel's effectual consequence is that Thrash walks off to Mississippi with proceeds from Longmont in both short-term largesse and with long-term profits on into the years. It's Longmont residents' money being spent. There has not been transparency, frankly, in LDDA and Thrash being allowed to jump line and within a dozen hours being given a go-ahead along with substantial donations from the city. The hotel should be put before the voters for comparative ranking of importance. In conversations around town and reading other writers' contributions to the Times Call, it seems clear to me that the hotel would not rise to the top. Voters think it's nuts, and you should get that quantified in a poll of some sort. I'm told it's a done deal. Well, the same was true several years ago when Mayor Peck and I and others got a fully completed annexation of land around Union Reservoir reversed. Buy her a beer and get her to tell that story. That has remarkable similarities to this current situation. An out-of-town entity mining Longmont's municipal resources for their own gain. The clerk has a slightly extended version of these short notes that have been submitted to the Times Call. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Richard. Lance Whitaker.
Mayor and Council, my name is Lance Whitaker, 1750 Collier Street, 40-year resident. I'd like to address House Bill 191230. Hope you guys can find time to enact staff to build an ordinance on that law. Today is National Microwave Oven Day, so hopefully you have a frozen burrito in the freezer to hit up on that microwave oven, and you guys have a nice day.
Thank you, Lance.
You're welcome.
Drew Sorrell.
Good evening, Mayor Peck and City Council members. My name is Drew Sorrells, and I live at 328 Grant Street in Longmont, Colorado. And this statement shared tonight represents the Bond Farm neighbors and provides you a brief update on the recent meetings and communications with the city related to the proposed Bond Farm development at 1313 Spruce Avenue in Longmont, Colorado. And will the members of the Bond Farm neighborhood please raise their hands to show their presence? Thank you. We have been vocal about numerous concerns over the current proposal to develop a 70-unit townhome complex on the Bond Farm property. We are also very excited, however, to work with the city and address our concerns in a constructive fashion, and in working with the city plan to offer alternatives to the current proposal that we feel would lead to a better development on the Bond Farm property. One that would be more compatible with the surrounding homes in terms of land use, density, site and building and layout design, with attention paid to the limitations along Spruce and the surrounding streets. We want to look upon this project with pride and satisfaction with years to come, and know that we all did our best to contribute to its success. Last week, members of our group met with city planners, it was Jennifer, Dawn, and Brian, to discuss the Bond Farm project and how we can best work with the city regarding alternatives that align with the character of the Bond Farm neighborhood. We are currently studying specific code and development guidelines along with the developer's submitted application. The plan is to consolidate our input and provide a specific recommendations that the city can approve, and that would enable the developer to take an approach that would be supported by both the existing residents, the city, and the developer. Basically a win-win situation for all parties involved. We fully expect to have proposals that we will offer to the Planning and Zoning early next year, with a follow-up proposal and specific recommendation to City Council at the appropriate time. It has been refreshing to see the willingness of the city to listen to our concerns and offer specific guidelines, guidance on how best we can channel our energy and excitement in a constructive fashion. As this process continues to unfold, we will be providing periodic updates to the City Council as we are this evening. Again, a big thanks to the City Planning Department for their professionalism in addressing our concerns and offering constructive guidance as we move through the planning process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Drew.
Thanks.
Matthew Popkin.
Excuse me. Good evening. Matthew Popkin, 852 Missouri Avenue, Southmore Park. City Council, I come before you again with a very simple ask. And that ask is to add community-wide energy efficiency to the City Council retreat agenda for advancing all of Longmont's goals, really, that are at all related. I'm talking about climate and clean energy, resilience, sustainability, electrification, and equity and affordability. Energy efficiency is the cleanest, least risk, and most fiscally responsible way to meet all of these goals and support affordable living for existing and future residents. Energy efficiency makes it easier for Longmont Power and Communications to manage the energy transition and reduce strain on the electric grid during peak times. And energy efficiency makes it more affordable for all residents to live here with lower electric bills, regardless of whether they have gas, electric, or both. Energy efficient homes are safer, healthier, and more affordable, and more resilient homes. So here are 5 asks that I offer for you to consider, or options really to consider, if you were to take this to your City Council retreat. The first is to reduce barriers to entry for participants in the Efficiency Works program. In fact, one thing you could do as soon as you had the budget to do it, or leveraging energy efficiency and conservation block grant funding from the federal government that's coming to the city, would be to make the Efficiency Works program free to do your efficiency audit, not just the $60 that it currentently costs, or $23 for 2023 if you saw their latest promo. Any cost, in fact, is a barrier to entry for anyone that's conscientious of that. The second option, establish a Longmont working group to increase energy efficiency for renters and landlords, to find solutions that work for both. The third solution, or option, I should say, prepare the Efficiency Works program for electrification and additional, for the electrification wave that will challenge the grid and currently our fundamental way of operation. Energy efficiency and electrification also present an opportunity for workforce training, and to do that right here in Longmont or in the 4 cities. And lastly, consider an on-bill financing program with Longmont Power and Communications, which will make it a lot easier to finance efficiency and electrification programs. Why do I come today? Well, timing matters. Now, before electric vehicles and electrification increase the demand and cost of electricity and the stress on the electric grid, and there's an unprecedented amount of federal dollars now they're about to flow into communities to support the clean energy and efficiency transition. Ultimately, energy efficiency reduces the energy burden of residents, it saves resources, it prepares us responsibly for a clean energy transition and a changing grid, and it makes living and owning a business in the city of Longmont more affordable.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to end with one sentence.
Okay.
Only 10%, as I shared last time I came here, only 10% of Longmont has used the Efficiency Works program to date. If I told you the most cost-effective, fiscally responsible solution has only been utilized 10% to achieve your goals, I urge you to reconsider the current operations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Christopher McKay?
Good evening, council members. My name is Chris McKay. I live at 3615 Glennier Drive in Longmont. I want to thank you for your time this evening. I'd like to make some comments on the Westview Acres annexation proposal, which is coming up in the future. I believe it's in the first reading tonight. That's slated for consideration This is a proposed new development in the South Airport Road area. I'm sure the council is familiar generally with the area. This community offers an array of diverse housing that includes everything from apartments to townhouses to single-family homes of all sizes and costs. It's what drew my family there, and it's what a lot of my coworkers also live there. So I'm also considering options to move my business from Boulder to Longmont in that general area because of that. So Westview Acres is proposed, and it's directly behind where my house is, as a small infill development in the center of an existing development that's been there for quite a while. Unfortunately, the proposed density isn't compatible with the properties that surround it on the three sides, Airport Road being on the fourth side. And it's almost 3 times more dense than the surrounding properties. And so myself and other homeowners and the HOA for there have submitted and worked with the city throughout the annexation process to provide information and to provide our comments. And we would like the council members to consider the density of the development more closely before voting on the annexation, because it's particularly important as that area has a lot of different types of properties and it has nice transitions between them that work very well. This as opposed to just a drop-in infill of a very small area. As a employer of many, over 200 people in this area, I understand Longmont needs housing of all types. And when this land is annexed and developed, I'm just asking that it's done in a way that's consistent and complementary with what's already existing and built there and has been approved over the years by the city. And this can be done by requiring the lot sizes in this Westview Acres to be increased and the density to be decreased so it matches the surrounding homes and it doesn't stick out from those areas. And this would essentially mean moving to 12 lots instead of the 22 that are currently proposed. Longmont has a lot of opportunities for some additional housing, including right across Airport Road on a Conemaugh Estates annexation that's being proposed and is currently going through the process. So we've submitted some supplementary documents about this to Don Burchett, and so that should be included in the packets that you have. And I want to thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you. So that ends our public invited to be heard. The first call for public invited to be heard, that is. And we're going to move on to our consent agenda and an introduction and reading of the ordinances. Don, would you mind reading those into the record?
Absolutely, Mayor. The ordinances on first reading tonight will be set for public hearing and second reading on December 20th, 2022. Item 9A is ordinance 2022-55, a bill for an ordinance making additional appropriations for expenses and liabilities of the City of Longmont for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2022. 9B is ordinance 2022-56, a bill for an ordinance reducing the utility billing CIS fund appropriation for expenses and liabilities of the City of Longmont for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2022. 9C is ordinance 2022-57, a bill for an ordinance conditionally approving the Westview Acres annexation and concept plan, generally located west of Airport Road and south of Pike Road, and zoning the property R-SF residential single family. 9D is ordinance 2022-58, a bill for an ordinance amending Chapter 4, Section 4.12.095 on the execution of intergovernmental agreements. 9E is resolution 2022-172, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the intergovernmental agreement between the city and the Regional Transportation District for the EcoPass program. 9F is resolution 2022-173, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the intergovernmental agreement between the city and the state of Colorado for a library grant. 9G is resolution 2022-174, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the revocable license agreement between the City of Longmont and Left Hand Water District for construction of infrastructure at 10916 Weld County Road 5. And 9H is resolution 2022-175, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the amended and restated special council contract between the city and Kissinger and Fellman PC for telecommunications, railroad and transportation, and electric special council services.
Thank you. Are there any council members that want to pull anything off of this first reading ordinances? Seeing none, can I have a motion? So it's been moved by Councilor Martin and seconded by Councilor Waters. Let's vote. And that passes unanimously. We do not have any items on the second reading, ordinances on second reading. So we're going to go directly to our general business, which is the city council retreat options. But before we do that, does anybody need a break? All right, let's jump right in then to our city council retreat options.
Mayor Peck, members of council, Sandy Cedar, Assistant City Manager. And finally, it's time to set a retreat date as well as topics and just thoughts around from the council, what you'd like to see during this retreat. The door is really open for what would be the most productive for the council. So maybe first we could talk about a date. I know we're going to talk about the rest of your calendar next, but or even just a month, as well as kind of time frame that you're thinking. I am happy to put the agenda together once you determine what kinds of topics and things that you would like to discuss. There are lots of options that councils have done in the past, including either some team building at the beginning or some sort of training. We do have a work plan that we would be happy to update from the last time that we met about it, which was, I believe, 2020 was the last time that we talked about that work plan, just to make sure that council is caught up with all of staff's activities. And then it really is your time to determine what is most productive for you. So I'm here to listen. And
So let's go to Councilor McCoy.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. I'm looking at this, and after talking to members of staff about when we generally had this in the past, and I was trying to remember when we had it in the past, and we were talking that it was probably later in the spring. Is that correct? Like February, March, April, somewhere in that?
it does depend. A January retreat is kind of tough just because scheduling wise, but you have held them in February, in March, in June, July.
Yeah,
it's up to you.
I'm just throwing out an idea, coming from a perspective of a teacher, not trying to get on, walk on any spring breaks or anything like that. I know that the week before this is the holiday weekend of Easter, so I was thinking that April 14th and 15th might be a possibility.
Is that a Friday, Saturday?
Yeah, Friday, Saturday. It's just for some of us, as we move into May, it gets a little bit hectic because of graduations and things like that. And if we back it up, then you're stepping on spring breaks and that sort of thing. And so I'm just proposing that we consider that.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. I would like to consider, and I understand that spring break is a big deal for all of us, except me, actually. But it's been a really long time since we had a retreat. And the last retreat, because the reorganization of the Longmont Housing Authority was focused only on housing. And consequently, I think that there is a sense of urgency that we need to update the general direction, go back to the vision, because I think based on the work that's been, I think the work plan, I would start from scratch, with the work plan, but I think the first thing we need to do is affirm the vision and then, go from there. But I would like to see it happen in February because we have so much to do and so little time. So, I have thoughts about how we could structure it, but I think, Sandy's right. We should settle on a time frame first. So I hope everyone would consider what first quarter dates are possible for all of us.
So, Counselor Martin, when you say February, do you have a timeline within that month? First part, middle, last?
No, because I'm not the person with constraints.
Okay, thanks. All right, Counselor Hidalgo Faring.
No, but, thank you, Mayor. So I totally concur, and that's when I put my, my speaker on to speak, is that we haven't had, been able to meet as a council to have these open discussions in a long time. So, you know, I do like the idea of February. The other suggestion that I was gonna throw out there, I know when I first got on council, in the past, it was a 2-day retreat, and then it was taken down 1 day. So I've only experienced 1-day retreats, and as someone who takes time to process, you know, I'm the one that goes home and I was like, oh, why didn't I say that? And that's me. So in order to be able to have that time to reflect, process, and then come back and have a more robust conversation with the rest of council, I would like to see us go back to 2 days. Don't hit me. Don't hit me. If, you know, and then, you know, then from there we could, if we decide to go this route, then we can, you know, do a Friday, Saturday, or.
So, do you have a specific date, time in February that you would like to see it?
I know we have a comp day coming in, and I'm gonna look up at my school schedule. And, you know, I don't want everyone to circle around me, but, because other people work. But I believe it is Friday, February 17th is a comp day for teachers. So St. Vrain, there is no school. So that is an option if we did a Friday, Saturday. The thing that I would like to mention, though, that is President's Day weekend. So, you know, there might be families, or, you know, staff that are planning on going out of town. So,
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. And those who have to watch their kids when they're off of school.
that's true, that is true. So, but, you know, I can make arrangements,
Okay.
but I feel this is important.
Counselor McCoy.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. I was just throwing out ideas. I thought it was more that we had done it in the spring, considering the very fact that we haven't met since that. I'm flexible, but let's take into account that there might maybe the 10th and the 11th might be better supported and have less conflicts with staff and other things like that, considering some of their kids go to St. Vrain Valley schools and stuff like that. So I'd like us to think about that.
Okay. So we haven't heard from Counselor Yarbrough or Counselor Martin. I mean Waters. Counselor Yarbrough.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. Well, since I haven't had the great opportunity to attend any of our retreats, I think I'm more flexible right now. I think President's Day weekend will probably be, honestly, it will be tough, but I do think February will be a good month. We have a lot to go over, to discuss. So I do believe that the sooner the better, but I do also believe that January will be just too soon and it will be hectic. So I think February for me will be fine. And I also believe that that weekend before President's Day, I think a lot of staff will probably take off. So we do have to be cognizant of that. So February is a good month for me.
Okay.
Mayor, if it would be okay, if you could raise your hands if February 10 and 11 works? Does that work for folks?
Turn on your microphone, sir. Counselor Waters.
Yeah, it would work for me after I've got a doctor's appointment already scheduled that Friday morning with a specialist that it's been months in trying to get the appointment, and if he has an opening between now and then, but I won't miss that appointment. So I'm happy to connect when I'm finished, but I won't give up the appointment to be anywhere at a particular time without first seeing him.
So Counselor Waters, as long as we have you on microphone, is there another date that would look better for you? Because we don't want you to miss that doctor's appointment at all.
Well, I'm not going to miss
No,
that.
but we want you there as well.
Well,
So-
it's like a 9:30 in the morning appointment, so, I could be there by whatever, I don't know how long it will take. So I can be there after that and would be there for the duration of a retreat. But all the other dates we've talked about for President's Day or whatever, I understand the complications. So, I'm good with the 10th, just understand I'll get there when I can.
Yeah, we could either start that later, depending on when your appointment is, or you could even bump it up to the February 2nd and 3rd.
So we,
3rd and 4th.
we haven't heard from Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez either. Come on, I'm going to make you talk. Okay, he raised his hand.
Okay,
Do you have your direction?
I do, but let's go ahead and start talking about topics. So
Okay.
generally, the way that we have started these retreats is either with some training or some team building. One of the things that we do add in there is kind of what staff is doing right now, so that you have some grounding in that piece. Outside of those things, I guess I have a couple of specific questions. Would you like a team building at the beginning? Would you rather have some sort of like equity training or something else? That's what we did last time. And then what topics would you like to discuss?
We don't have to have one of those falls, do we?
Absolutely not. In fact, I believe it's discouraged by our risk staff. And I did hear re-looking at the vision. Is that something that folks would like to do, is to take a re-look at the vision? Okay.
Counselor Martin?
Yes, I was about to say that for some of us who have been on council for a long time, some of the trainings that are very important, DEI implementation training and stuff, we've had it a few times, and maybe that will work out, because if Dr. Waters can't join us until, say, 10:30 or 11, then we could do the equity training during that time, because we have at least 3 people who haven't been through it at all. And so that might be one way to do it, because I know it hurts your heart, Sandy, not to do any of that stuff and just get right down to business. Yeah, that would be my suggestion.
Okay, so maybe some DEI training, continue some of those conversations. We just were in touch with NLC today, in fact. Okay, so start off with some DEI training and then the staff updates, affirming the vision, and then where would you like to go from there?
Counselor McCoy?
Well, in the past, one time we tried something which was, personality evaluations and that sort of thing. If you remember back then, it was one of those things that kind of helped us understand where people were coming from when they made decisions and how they approached, speaking with others and discussing issues with others and how those dynamics work together.
I do remember that, and we were all in the A. We were all A personalities. Do you remember that?
Yep. Yeah, I'd be happy to redo a disc training or something short like that. Yeah, that would be great.
And are we going to look at our work plan?
Yes,
Okay.
that will be part of the kind of the intro, get going. So DEI training, maybe a disc test or something to that effect, staff update and work plan update.
So the work plan, I know that Counselor Waters is definitely interested in that. So we need to make sure that he is there when we do that one.
Great. And then I'm assuming, so once you are able to take a look at the work plan, if there are some topics that you would like to make sure that you discuss during the retreat, I would be happy to add those so that we can have staff preparation.
Okay, Counselor Waters?
Thanks, Mayor Peck. Since I was mentioned, and I appreciate the consideration. For me, this is for what it's worth. It seems to, if I think about a work plan, it would be to accomplish something with some clarity in terms of goals and objectives. So a work plan absent refreshed or renewed or, developed goals and objectives would seem to me to be just an exercise without direction, right? So I do think wherever we end up with goals and objectives relative to topics, a work plan that follows on to that, I might add just a couple of things. One is, the last time we were in this conversation about work plans, I kind of had this expectation that if it was a work plan to accomplish the goals we'd set, what we would see is what the expectations were, at least from staff, for us. It really became a work plan for you, right? Kind of laid on top of your work plan, which never made a whole lot of sense to me, although I appreciate the work that went into it, you know, in the attempt to do as much alignment as possible. So with that thought in mind, in addition to whatever goals, you know, we might talk about, this is going to sound like a criticism. I don't mean it to be harsh, but it is just my observation that goals that we set that don't have your fingerprints, and I'm not talking about you, Sandy, I'm talking about staff, that don't have staff fingerprints on them, that aren't owned by the staff, kind of become our thing, not your thing, or not our thing collectively. And that's not to suggest that, you know, I've been critical recently of bringing recommendations grounded or based on a council work plan that we haven't updated, right? So I've been vocal about that. So I'm happy that we'll update the work plan. I would like to see, at some point in this, I don't know how other council members feel about this, I've asked the question of staff, what is it, you guys can do thousands of things on behalf of the community. Great work, because we had great people doing it. You don't need us for most of what you do. You may not need us for anything that you do, other than, you know, to take the formal actions when you make recommendations for resolutions and ordinances. But I'm guessing there are a few things that you can't get done without us. What I'd rather start with is, what are those things? If I knew what you needed us for, and we could put together a work plan that brought us together, us as a council, with you on things that you care about, and I know housing would be on that list, I suspect there are some others. I'd rather start with, what can you not get done without this council, rather than what we might pile on top of what you know you need to get done, whether it's with us or not, right? I'd rather you own, like we're gonna own, whatever those goals and that work plan is, because it puts us together accomplishing something that we all care about that's in the interest of the community. So in terms of topics, personally, I'd rather start there. And I love the goals we set. I love the vision statements that we developed, and I'd love to see all that stuff updated. But without knowing what you want to get done, or have to get done, and can't do without us, I think is a real important question, at least for me.
Yeah, one of the things that we've talked about is if I could get a little time at the beginning to really go over, here's what's in our world, here's what's on our plate, here's what we have to, need to, want to get some perspective on what, the overall workload is and how we put these things in place, especially in light of just the staffing challenges and everything else we have, so that we can really highlight a few things and get really good at a few things. And so one of the things I was going to ask for is a little bit of time to talk about that in terms of the pyramid of what are we here to do, what does that mean? And then take a little bit of time. Our employee advisory group did a really good survey of the organization, and take a few minutes just to give you a sense of what our organization's saying. So touches into that to really get to this point of what can we do collectively.
So Harold, that's a good idea. When you do that, for the update at the beginning, if we could have a list of the objectives as a reminder of what did we set, so that we can see what you're saying, how does it tie into our objectives? And then we can cross some things off immediately or update them when we get to that part of the agenda. Does that make sense?
I guess so. So we would give you what you all put in the original one, what we've done as it relates to these issues.
I don't really want you to, when you started off, to do that. But if we could have a list of the objectives as you're talking, then we can mentally put it together, and that would help the conversation for me when we get to that part of the agenda.
Okay.
Okay. Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. First point of order, I may have been having a moment at the time, but did we call for agenda revisions, or did we skip that item? I remember we did it.
It was called for.
We did.
Okay. Is there a chance that we could do that at the end, or should I just wait till next week?
Let's just wait.
Okay.
What do you think?
Well,
Well, let me ask council, shall we wait for next week or let her make a motion? I know that we did it last week, but was stated at the beginning of the meeting. So I guess I don't really want to change the agenda because then we're going to have to vote to change the agenda first of all. So,
well, it does seem.
does it pertain to anything?
Yes,
that we're doing now?
It pertains to, it pertains to goal setting for sure. In terms of, it certainly pertains to some of the things that I would like the retreat to look at and to go on the staff's work plan.
So since we're not going to have the retreat until February, can you just tell us now what you want on the agenda? That's what we're doing.
Yes.
Okay.
A statement from council about firearm control was drafted by the staff based on a discussion with the council, and then we sort of let that drop because, Madam Mayor, you introduced some firearms regulation ordinances instead, sort of rendering that irrelevant in the short term. But now that we have voted to take that matter up after the state legislature has adjourned in the spring, late spring, that statement becomes important again. And so I would like to introduce for a future agenda, but before the retreat, consideration of that statement.
So this doesn't have anything to do with the retreat?
Well, yeah, because it would inform the council about what that statement and what our options are. You know, that was a draft statement that the council needed to complete, and I believe that that statement, the council's intent, should be expressed prior to the goal-setting exercise that I seem all to believe that the retreat should become.
So my opinion is then we wait until the next meeting and you can make a motion at the proper time on the agenda, since this is about specifically the retreat. But if anyone else wants to weigh in on that, please do.
Okay, I'm not gonna let go of the mic because I'm also waiting to talk about the retreat agenda. So
Okay,
can I have the mic back if
Yes.
somebody else wants to weigh in on the subject of changing the agenda? If anybody doesn't care about changing the agenda, then I'll just do it next week.
I asked for input and I didn't see any, so I think we'll wait until next week.
Well then, we have a lot of really good and specific staff work plans that have come out of a relatively few goals, policy goals set by our council. Okay, in specific, they are the 2030 electrification goal. They are the climate emergency declaration, and the beneficial electrification committee that came out of the original work that we did because of the climate emergency. Now, there are those basic actions have created a roadmap for a lot of work that the city needs to do, including some of the things that Mr. Popkin brought up when he was addressing us. And what those roadmaps lack, for the most part, are firm goals in the sense, in the sense that that the 2030 resolution is a firm, updated objective. I would like the council to consider two things. One is, what other roadmaps do we need to create in the next year that will work that way for the council? And the other thing that I think that needs to be done is to set some firm, dated goals on those roadmaps so that we can measure whether we're making the right kind of progress along the roadmaps or not. And so I think that that gives us an awful lot of agenda, and I'm really glad that Susie weighed in favor of a long meeting, because there's a lot of work to be done just in terms of the the climate emergency recommendations and the electrification recommendations, which have not, the Longmont Power has plan of their own that has not been dictated by council, other than the adoption of the approval for the new software and the new meters, right? But in terms of accomplishments enabled by that, the council should be aware of what kind of a roadmap that implies, and we should put some milestones on that roadmap, as well as beneficial electrification roadmap, which has some soft milestones, but they're not very hard, and other items off of the climate emergency recommendations. So all of those things are there, and that there's probably a new roadmap that we haven't really discussed at all, but the staff is working on it, which is urban density, amenitization of the quality of life initiatives in the not the title sense, because I know we're not using that title, but if you have a denser city, what other things need to change about the city, the new zoning changes, all of that needs to be in a roadmap that is similar to the beneficial building electrifications roadmap. And I think that's probably enough, but I would really love to see, the council's consciousness of how those things proceed be the central theme of the retreat.
Thank you. Councillor Yarbrough.
Thank you, Mayor Peg. So you just tell me if what I'm about to ask is not what we should be doing at the retreat. So I think for me, if we can have some type of, instead of team building, and I guess we're not going to do that because I know nobody will catch me if I fail. I think conflict resolution training will be really helpful. Not just, when we have our constituents who email us or talk to us out in public, some of us really know how to deal with that, and some of us don't. And I'm not talking about anyone else. I'm just saying, even just certain situations, we may be really good at that until that one come to us, and how do we diffuse the situation? Maybe they've had that in the past, but for myself as a new council person and dealing with, being the face of, we're the government here. And so it's important that we know how to effectively, professionally diffuse a situation. And what is the protocol? I think also need to talk about social media. What is the protocol in diffusing those arguments or those conflicts as well in the public, also with social media? I think that's very important for council and very important for our public to know what we should be doing and what we shouldn't be doing, what we should and shouldn't say. How should we react to social media? Because like I myself, my social media was my private. Now, everybody know who I am. And so I want to make sure I do the right things and say the right things and diffuse those situations. So for me, maybe that's something privately I can go in the office and we have that conflict resolution kind of training. Or is that something that at the retreat that we can tag on and kind of talk and discuss, or just have some guidelines? That would be good for me for in-person, social media. That would be perfect for me. Also, I know you're going to tell me yes or no on that, but I would also like for us to talk about, and it kind of goes along a little bit with Councilwoman Martin was talking about the density, urban density. Will our police, our public safety be there at the retreat as well? Because I do want to talk about how do we make sure with our density of our population, our growth, how do we make sure that we, what can we do to make sure our crime rate doesn't increase? And how, what is, as council, making those certain decisions, what do we need to be doing? What can we do? And that's important, and I want to hear from our public safety on that. Where, just like, Council Waters was saying, what do you need us to do? So I think it's also important, and I know you will, city manager, you will definitely let us know, but I also want to hear from public safety and, as to some things they may say, this is what we need from you. This is where we need you to step in, right? So for me, those are some areas, along with what everyone else said, but it sounds like we're gonna need more than 2 days. Just saying.
Or 2 retreats.
But anyway, that's along with what everyone else had mentioned. I don't know if that's possible, and you can just give me an outline and I can study it or whatever, too. Thank you.
So, Mayor Peck, we have done that training before with council.
I know.
Upon request, so it is something we can do.
I want to piggyback on that and have this discussion in public, especially about social media. And I want to put email in there. I sometimes do not know how to answer these questions and push it on to staff, but maybe I should know how to do that in a respectful way and bring the conversation around so that I don't sound negative. So,
Mayor Peck, I only have a couple of other questions. Are you interested in having a dinner together Friday night? Sometimes you have, sometimes you haven't. It's really up to you all.
What's for dinner?
Whatever you guys decide.
And how long of a break do we get?
We will likely go until 5 o'clock on Friday, based on what I'm hearing so far. And I'll put all this together into an agenda for you to take a look at. We won't just run straight to the retreat. You'll have that opportunity to look at the agenda and make sure that it's going to get you where you want to go. And so it's really up to you. We will probably meet until 5, and then you can do dinner directly after if you'd like to, or if you need the break, that's fine too. I've seen it go both ways successfully.
Okay. Councilor Martin.
I wanted, thank you, Mayor Peck. I wanted to concur with Councilmember Yarborough that focusing on conflict resolution is probably more timely than just standard DEI, which is broader and easier. I was thinking of it as a retreat subject. The retreat is technically a public meeting, but I would be equally happy to accept the mayor's suggestion that we do it publicly at another time. But I just wanted to add my agreement that that's an important thing.
I think she was saying that it.
Yeah, I'm sorry if you misunderstood. I didn't say at another time. I meant at the retreat.
Oh, okay. Well, then everybody agrees, or at least the
There you
three
go.
of us who've spoken on it agree.
2 more last questions. One, do you have a preference whether staff facilitates, or would you like to bring in an outside facilitator? And it's okay not to have a preference.
No, I'm sorry, Councilor Hidalgo Ferry.
So, and for as far as facilitating the discussion, would it be throughout the whole retreat or the equity work?
We would certainly bring in some experts when it came
Thank
to
you,
conflict,
yes.
the conflict mediation, if we did some, the personality. We would bring in some experts for those pieces. But the roadmap discussions, the vision discussions, that's what I mean by, would you rather that be facilitated by staff or by an outside facilitator? We will bring outside experts in for those training sessions, for sure.
I want to think, did we have an outside facilitator leading our retreat the last time we met?
No, I think I just led it last time.
You did? Okay. I mean, ideally, especially if we're setting goals, it would be nice to have someone who's not in the thick of things. But I understand with financing budget, if it's not in the cards, I'm okay with that as well. But I would suggest having an outside facilitator. I have no preference for dinner. Either way, my kids are all grown up and I don't like my husband. No, just kidding. He's on my last nerve right now. He's not. And I do concur with Councilmember Yarborough's conflict resolution, social media, and even email. I think, we all have a different take on how we approach things, and I think it would be nice for us to be consistent in how we address the public. Because you're right, there are some emails that come to me and I don't know what to do with this. Help! Yeah. And so, that would be nice to have that as well. Additionally, one of the things that as far as the teacher, the work I do with the Teacher Association and equity for our union members, is having courageous conversations. So having just those really uncomfortable conversations that come up about culture, race, socioeconomic, just to be able to have some understanding on how to address when those come up. So.
We're going through that now, and so we do have that group that we're contracting with.
Wonderful, thank you.
I think it's a very good format for how to think about those conversations that are difficult. So, yeah, great suggestion.
Councillor McCoy, one more.
Peck. Thank you, Mayor Peck. So I agree that we should probably have some outside entity working in each of these areas. I think it's healthy. It brings our staff in as part of the discussion, and it makes the situation more of a conversation and less of a policy creation time together. And I also think that the social media and email discussion is a good one. Even 11 years ago, it would have been helpful, but to this point here, I think it's just changed so much, and so I think that's great. I like the idea of talking about public safety and maybe safe streets and that sort of thing, and talking about how we can make things a little bit safer in a couple of different areas there. I'd like to somehow have a discussion around some of the energy efficient aspects there, and just in general, I think that the points that have been made by Councilmember Yarborough and Councilmember Hidalgo-Ferrin are excellent, and I would support those.
Thank you. Councillor Waters.
Thanks, Mayor Peck. In terms of the topics, I'll be comfortable with where we end up. I've already said where my preferences are. I will say I disagree with what I've heard about facilitation. I think bringing expertise in for the specific content that that we may cover. But having been in a whole lot of facilitated planning or retreat sessions, I don't know that I've been any that are any better facilitated, Sandy, than the ones you facilitated. So for my purposes, I don't know that we could find a better facilitator. I just have Sandy facilitate it and bring in the content expertise you need when you need it.
I would agree with that. What else do you need to know?
Okay, last question. Is there anything else you want me to know to feel like this retreat is exactly what you need? Make sure it's a success. Anything else you want me to consider as I write the agenda up? Coffee in the morning? Absolutely no problem. We always have lots of coffee in the morning, even though our chief
call on you in a
coffee
second.
maker has retired. Karen.
Karen.
Yeah.
Monsters.
So I do have one thing on my mind, but I'm not sure the retreat is where it goes, but sometime this year, it's up to the rest of the council. I would like to look at old ordinances at some point that no longer fit or they need to be amended. I know that's a big ask. That's why there are so many ordinances, but if any counselor has specific ones, one or two that we could at least throw out and maybe not make a decision at the retreat, but just awareness, perhaps?
Yeah.
Because I think we, in meetings, I know that I come up with, why are we still doing this? And I think, I don't know. I have no idea. So that was mine. Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. I actually would like to agree with that, and especially since you know we sort of we've looked without any serious objections to at least 4 tracks of goal setting for the council. You know, we're going to have a lot to do, a lot to come back to, and I would not necessarily, I personally be averse to having a mid-year retreat, since we've got one to catch up on, and look at what ordinances need to be revisited because the city's direction has changed. You know, I've got 2 or 3 in my back pocket already, and didn't dare bring them out for the retreat. And so I think it'd be great to have maybe a 1-day retreat where we looked at ordinances on those different goal determined tracks and said, you know, what do we need to revise? You know, solarization might be one of them, because our solar rooftop, you know, personal solar ownership is a little arcane right now, and maybe inconsistent. So, and certainly the, you know, density parking, all of that stuff that we hear about all the time needs to be looked at. So I don't know how anybody else feels about that. The reason my light was on originally was because if everybody doesn't like their spouses that much, well, I was using it for a metaphor, as I'm sure Susie was, but I think it'd be great to have a really non-messy working supper, you know, at the end of the first day, instead of making it a family affair and we all bring our kids and all of that stuff. You know, let's have a nice dinner where we can really roll our sleeves up and recap what we learned in the first day, and set some agenda for the second day. Because I have reached every council retreat that had a dinner not wanting to stop talking about it. So, I don't know. I think we should poll the council on that one, because it's a little radical, but that was my suggestion.
Okay, Mayor, the next step is that I'm going to take all of this input and put together an agenda, and then I'll bring that back to you so that you can determine whether I caught it or not, and then we'll set those dates and get moving. Thank
Sounds
you.
great. Thank you so much. Oh, Councilor Hidalgo-Faring.
Sorry, I thought maybe you had one more item. So as far as items to put on the agenda, I think our work plan, it covers a lot around public safety, transportation. I mean, did you want something more specific? I know we're looking at Vision Zero. The other concern, especially, you know, I continue to have conversations with residents on North Main. I shop at King Soopers on 23rd and Main. So, you know, looking at individuals experiencing homelessness, you know, are those individual things that we need to have, that we should request to have on the agenda at this point, or?
Everything that you just mentioned is listed specifically in your current work plan.
That's
so
what I
feel
thought.
like
I
it's included in
wasn't
the
sure if we
discussion.
if it would be redundant or, okay.
Yep,
But
I
I
think you
wanted
got
to
it.
make sure the public, I'm sure many in the public don't know what's in our work plan. So I wanted to make sure that those are the topics that we are going to be discussing.
And if I
certainly in
understood
that.
Harold correctly, that is what he said he's going to tell us what we're working on at the beginning.
Yes.
So when we have that vision and those objectives before us, we can strike them off and say, okay, this is what's happening.
Yeah, I'm also gonna add kind of what's our base level of work that we have to do
Oh, great.
in addition to this, and so to tier up into these different components.
Okay.
And then we'll take your work plan. Actually, I'm writing some notes. I think I want to group them by topic area. I think grouping them by topic area, because you're honing in on about 4 specific topic areas in what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
And then we'll pull these there.
Okay. Sounds great. Do you need anything else from us? Thank you
No,
for
thank
all
you.
you're doing.
Absolutely.
It's great. So the next thing on our agenda, we're going to skip the calendar for right now. Let's go. Do we need to set this calendar for next year? Tonight? Yes. Let's go to the council calendar for 2023. Who gets to do that?
Mayor, if you'd like to go month by month, as we've done in the past.
I think that's a good idea.
That's a good idea. Would you like me to pull it up on the screen or just look on your screens in the packet? Either's good. I can pull it up.
Do we need it for the public if they're still watching?
I can pull it up.
Yes, please do.
Lance is watching.
I'm sure you're going to tell us what is the thing for the month. Lance. Microwave, yes.
All right, so this is January up on the screen. And we ran through this calendar, gave this to the Housing Authority so they could consider Board of Commissioners meetings. So we've added those in the mix. So this calendar, as proposed, is based on the concept that you have been doing for all of 2023, which is the 2 required regular sessions required by charter and 1 study session each month, adding in the Housing Authority Board of Commissioners meeting. So we started there, added in the holidays, the conferences, and majors, Boulder Valley School District and St. Vrain Valley School District holidays. So that is what you're seeing. So January 2023, St. Vrain is still on winter break, and I believe Boulder Valley is as well, that first week of January. So we were wondering, wanting to confirm you wanted to cancel the 3rd, hold a regular session on the 10th and 24th, and then the Housing Authority Board of Commissioners, that in January would be on the 31st, with a study session on the 17th or an open forum, looking for direction as to whether you'd like to do an open forum in January as well. So,
does anyone on council want to change this calendar that she's put together for us? Councilor Waters.
No, I wouldn't change it. I would, I think the open forum, especially in January, would be most appropriate and would be I think, more productive, honestly, than study session. And just for what it's worth, I've mentioned to several people, I'm going to be out of town on the 31st of January. So just saying, you're going to have the LHA Board Commissioner meeting. I just won't be there. So.
okay, good to know. Thank you.
The only other thing I would say, I know we're going to, as we go through this month by month, this is the only open forum in this calendar. So as we get into June.
It's sticky.
Or July, I know that's tough, but when we get there, I think we ought to look for another date.
And I
for an
have,
open forum.
I have an idea in my notes here for you when we get there. So yes, agreed.
So we accept January.
And just a reminder, we've already agreed on a pre-session, joint meeting with the LDDA also on the 10th. We sent that out to you all and everybody agreed on that. Okay. That just didn't make this packet. February is a pretty standard month would be 2 regular sessions on the 14th and 28th on the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays, a study session on the 7th, and then a Board of Commissioners meeting on the 21st.
Are we going to get gifts on Valentine's Day?
We can. Harold will buy.
You volunteered him. So, is there anyone that does not agree with this calendar?
And then we would add the retreat, sounds like the 10th and the 11th.
Yes, okay.
Okay.
So that was accepted.
March, regular sessions on the 7th and 21st. We're thinking you might want to cancel the 28th because of Congressional Cities Conference, and then Board of Commissioners meeting on the 14th. So I'm going out of order, my apologies, but you can see there St. Vrain Valley spring break is the 3rd week, Boulder Valley is in the 4th week, so those don't line up in 2023. They do in 2024, I think, so 2023 is a rough year in this calendar business. How's March look?
So, on the 28th, how many people do we need to be gone for a quorum? Can we have 2 people missing?
Yes.
So my suggestion is we wait before we cancel it and see how many people are going to be at NLC.
So make that a study session? Tentative study session?
I think that would be my suggestion. Let's see if others have any.
I see
Councilor
a
Martin.
couple head shakes.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Peck. That's exactly what my suggestion is, because I am strongly feeling that we're ending up with not enough study sessions.
Okay.
And I have, close enough to the end of my term limit that I've, been to NLC and CML enough.
Yeah.
And so I'll be here. So let's at least try
Okay.
to have a study session.
Okay. Any other comments? Seeing none, I think that we'll do that with that suggestion.
Okay, sounds good. April,
While we're on that, when do we need to start making reservations for?
it's come out already. Early registration is already out.
Yeah,
Yes.
so,
Is that in DC?
yeah, that's the one in DC,
I don't
so
know how
we'll
many.
need to,
That's true.
Sandy,
Harold,
Go
I
ahead.
think we already do have 3 council members interested, is what
Oh, we
I'm
do?
thinking.
that's kind of why I was asking.
Right.
I don't know.
If you wrote back to us, who was interested in going? Yeah.
Well, I think we should cancel that meeting.
back to
Okay.
canceling March. All right. So the March 28th will go ahead and be canceled. Okay. April, study session on the 4th, regular on the 11th, Board of Commissioners 18th, and a regular session on the 25th.
Councilor Martin.
I'm behind here, but if we can't have a study session because everybody is at NLC, could we consider having a study pre-session on the day of the LHA board meeting? I just don't like having a month with no study time at all.
We can pencil that in, and if there's a topic that
It's
needs,
council's.
yeah,
So
up to you all.
I'd be interested in hearing what other people think about that idea.
Back to March. So you're still speaking of March. I'm just gonna scroll back to it. so-
No, I think, are you wanting a study session in March or a study?
Right, I think Councilman Martin is suggesting right here on March 14th as a pre-session to the Board of Commissioners meeting that we pencil in a study session in case, as a pre-session, if needed. Am I-
Councilor Hidalgo, fine.
So I guess, because it's penciled in if needed, so, just to let you know, then I would not be able to make any pre-session. I do have classroom conferences from 5:30 to 6:30. So, in March, yeah. We do a different model for conferences. It's a classroom and then we have individual. It's very complex. So there's a lot of moving parts in there, but I won't be able to attend that if that's, however, if we move into LHA before, on the 18th, April, my birthday, I can come in early then.
Councilmember Martin, you also have had study sessions that end with a board of, with an LHA Board of Commissioners meeting, if you'd rather do it that way too. That way
So
you
make
start
the
at 7.
14,
Start at 7, it's a study session. We'll be mindful of the fact that it's also a Board of Commissioner meeting.
so it'll be a longer night, but
Could be,
that's
if it's
fine
needed.
with me.
Right, if it's needed.
If it's needed, we can schedule it that way.
Poor staff. It's a long night.
I'm here,
Anyway,
whether it's Board of Commissioners or,
okay, that was a good comment. Good choice.
Okay,
April.
April. Study regular, Board of Commissioners regular.
Any discussion on that? Seeing none, I think that we will adopt that one.
Very good. May is pretty straightforward with the question of, there's a fifth Tuesday there, the 30th. Could be a study session, could cancel. Could be an opportunity for an open forum, might be too soon. That would be up to you all. Because as you look forward, as we look at June and July are tough. So if you want to do another open forum, it's May or August, I think are your opportunities. Want me to come back to this fifth Tuesday?
Counselor Waters.
This is May, yes.
As I think about what's currently on and will be on our agenda, and what we discussed last week in terms of whatever we're going to call the Culture and Recreation Initiative, or I think we would be well advised to use May as an opportunity for an open forum. I'm certain we'll hear a lot. It's a chance to share in the dialogue or the give and take. I think it would be a missed opportunity. And waiting till August, I think, especially for that reason,
Okay.
we'd be a little bit behind the curve in terms of what we'd like to learn from the public.
So let's do a hand raise if you want to use that last Tuesday as open forum in May. All right.
That was easy.
Yep.
Okay, very good.
to that point, we will put that in our community involvement plan as a target date so that we're moving into it.
All right. June has the CML conference that last week of June, which is a different rotation, I think, than has been in the past. So that kind of throws us for a loop. So allows for 2 regular sessions as required, and 1 Board of Commissioners meeting unless you didn't have a whole bunch of you going to CML, which would be also different.
The
Usually have a good
interesting thing, though, it's in Aurora.
It is in
So there
Aurora.
would be no traveling, and I don't know, if people just didn't want to take a session on that day, we could have it. Because we could do both, really. Just don't schedule any sessions. Correct. Correct. Counselor McCoy.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. I might be out of town on the 27th. I might be taking students to Atlanta for Future Business Leaders Nationals.
Well, that sounds interesting.
So it's either the 27th or the 28th, depending on the flight.
Okay. But we would still have a quorum, so.
Would you like put it back as a study session then?
Yes, well, let's, what is everybody, Shakita's shaking her head. You guys good with that? Yes, please.
Very good. Okay. Moving to July has the 4th of July, Independence Day holiday there on the first Tuesday, so that's a clear answer. The 2nd and 4th would be your regular sessions and Board of Commissioners on the 18th.
Could we do the 18th as a /study session in LHA board as well?
If you'd like us to, we'd be happy to do that.
I see Shakita. Yes, with the LHA after. I know that's difficult for those of you that are working in the morning. You okay with that? Okay. Today I'm okay. The whole thing looks great today.
Very good.
If it's okay with council, the one thing, if we have a heavy LHA meeting, we may just have it as an LHA meeting instead of adding a study session on top of it. but we will know that as we're moving into it.
Okay. It'll be your call then.
And I just say that because we have a few development projects
Oh, that's
that'll
right.
be coming forward, so some of these may get heavy, but we should know a month out
Okay.
and what that's gonna look like.
Very good. Moving on to August is a 5 Tuesday month. We need that last Tuesday for a study session to introduce the budget, so we do need that one to be there. So the first really could be a study. This was the other hold I thought might be for an open forum, or it could be a cancellation. A regular session on the 2nd and 4th with your Board of Commissioners on the 15th. So what would you like to do with that first Tuesday is the question. And how does the rest look?
If council, I know some of you are heading into the school year and may want some time. If you want it, we could do a dual LHA study session on the 18th. That way you have 2 studies, 2 regulars, and that gives you
On the 15th?
15th, sorry. I'm still getting used to these. So you could do a regular study, LHA, regular study, and then that gives you the first before school starts, if you all wanted to take that time.
So cancel that?
It's an
yeah,
option.
Yeah.
Because I don't think the
Cancel which
August,
The first.
If I'm remembering, the August LHA meetings typically aren't that robust.
You know, this is just a thought that I was wondering. I love the open forums, especially at the beginning of the year, but I would love to know what the residents thought of what we did during the year. It would be great to have some kind of feedback. And I often thought that toward the end of the year, it would be great to have an open forum with, what do you think? You know, but I don't know. Well, I don't know if the other counselors think that's good or bad. Counselor,
That'll be your third open forum.
yeah, maybe not. Counselor Martin.
Well, I actually, I remember proposing 3 open forums in 2018. I think you can't have too many. And I do agree that, right now the public is very vocal. And it really can't hurt to take their temperature twice. So I'd be for it if anybody else wants to consider it.
Any other comments? Counselor Yarbrough.
I'm not opposed, thank you, Mayor Peck. I'm not opposed to 3 open forums, but I think August is a very, very busy month. Not only, I know I'm not in the schools as a teacher, but we have programs when kids go back to school. And so, and I know for those 2 right there, it's gonna be a very, very rough month.
Okay.
So I just think that's gonna be a little
It's
tough.
just an idea to
No,
throw
it's a great
outside,
idea, though.
but-
Yeah, so that's why we need to make sure we have the conflict resolution before we have that open forum. Just saying.
I think that's a great idea as well.
So
Okay,
shall we
so nix that idea, no open forum.
cancel the August 1st meeting and do the 2 regular? Okay. And we'll keep that last one for budget. Moving.
Well, we'll just do that as a study session.
It's a study session. Yep, it's noted as study, yeah. So, September, we do need, ask for all of those because it is budget season, so if that's okay with you all, that would be study, regular, no LHA, BOC, unless there were an urgent item. We would figure out what agenda to add that to if there were something that had to be taken care of.
Okay, it looks like we all agree with that.
All right. We're in the home stretch. October has 5 Tuesdays. So our question here is, what would you like to do on Halloween? Would you like to be here? Or the 3rd, either way. The 10th and the 24th would be your regular sessions. The 17th, your Board of Commissioners. Up to you how we schedule that month.
I personally would like to cancel it. Any other
Halloween?
comments?
The 31st?
Yes.
Okay. Guard your pumpkins. Very good. And then November, the 7th is Election Day. We historically have canceled that. We don't have to, but it is a regular municipal election. You'll various of you in watch parties. So our recommendation is cancel that one, then hold the 2 regular sessions on the 14th and 28th. And the 21st is Thanksgiving week. Both St. Vrain and Boulder Valley are on Thanksgiving break that week. So we could, if you prefer to cancel and not hold any meetings that Tuesday, we could also do that and work around it on the 14th and 28th. Really up to you all.
Any suggestions? Counselor Yarbrough?
Thank you, Mayor Peck. I would suggest, of course, you know, we don't know what's gonna happen in the future, but I think with that week, instead of us canceling like that month, I think we should not have a meeting the week of Thanksgiving. That's me, that's my opinion.
Okay. Any other comments? Counselor McCoy?
Thank you, Mayor Peck. My feeling is that you get lower turnout to come to meetings when people are leaving town. And as we continue to kind of process out of COVID and people feel more comfortable traveling, we're going to see fewer and fewer people at our meetings, and we should have meetings that are meaningful, I think.
Okay.
The only thing I would ask is if for some reason LHA shows up,
That's what
if
I was-
I have the ability to, we're not beholden by the same rules as a Board of Commissioners. So if we needed to schedule something on the 16th or the 30th, if we had that flexibility, that would be great.
I agree with that, especially ending up the year with an LHA board. You're doing so much during the year that I don't want to.
And that's budget time, so I think if I just had, I mean, we could, you know, it'd probably be the 16th or the 30th, but if we just had that flexibility, I think that would solve the LHA needs.
Keep in mind that 16th is a conference.
Well, the 30th,
NLC,
then the
yeah.
30th then.
Any comments on that? To just give the flexibility to the city manager to call an LHA meeting. Okay, we're good.
So cancel the week of Thanksgiving and work around that one.
Yes.
Okay. Moving to December. So now under our new charter amendments, thank you to the voters, we will have an organizational meeting on Tuesday, December 5th, and a study session. We could really do a whole lot of different things here, but this was our proposal, organizational and a study session to take it easy if there were anybody new, and then do 2 regular sessions back to back. Or we could do an organizational and a regular session, do a study session on the 12th and a regular on the 19th. Up to you. It all works. Either way, we end up with back-to-back regular sessions. Yeah, November, December, we always run into that, so.
Is there anyone opposed to this? Okay. I think you have that month taken care of.
And then break for, say, SVVSD and BVSD is both the following 2 weeks. And then I wondered if we might slide January 2024 in while we're at it. And the reason being is that this time of year, staff is really chomping at the bit to get their items on the agenda calendars, and Harold asks staff to do that. If we don't have meetings set, we don't add those to the agenda system. So staff is yelling at me a lot.
Oh.
So if we could, and January 2024 looks relatively normal. My proposal is in yellow on the bottom of the screen. January 9th, regular session, January 16th, Board of Commissioners, 23rd, regular session, and then that final Tuesday could be a study session or an open forum. If we stick with the January open forum towards the end of the month, that would be an open forum. We don't have to necessarily schedule the open forum. Maybe you want to hold off on that, but if we could schedule those, the first 3, that would be really helpful for staff.
Okay, any comments? Everyone accept that? All right, we're good to go on January 24.
With the open forum on the 30th, or do you want to hold
I
off on-
would say yes to that.
Yes?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you very much. That's all I have. So we will bring this back for adoption.
Good job on the calendar.
Thank you.
Oh,
3.7 million, or 3.4 million.
we're not political, but I'm very happy.
It's right at 1%. It's been going back.
I guess we're all political, we're just nonpartisan. Okay, so our very last thing on this general business is discussion about the motion that I made to add time on a study session for open discussion. Does anyone need to take a break at this point? Last thing, let's power through. Before we do this, can I just make a statement since I made this motion? I had heard that maybe a pre-session instead of taking study session time would be a good idea too, so can we throw that into the discussion once a month? So for Councilor McCoy, we had previously, a couple of years ago, said that we wanted to take Friday mornings just so council could have general discussion, avoiding the sunshine law, to talk about anything we wanted to bring up, our controversies, questions about procedure, anything. But that didn't really work. So I made the motion because I like the idea that we can have time just to sit down and talk. That we take maybe a few minutes, whatever it would take from a study session once a month, to devote to, without staff having to do anything really, that we would just talk about whatever's on our mind or what we think would be good, or even if we wanted to ask each other about what does this ordinance mean, whatever. So I now, after hearing people talk, they may not want a study session, but would you be interested in a pre-session once a month to sit down? So I'm going to call on you for feedback.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Peck. You said it didn't really work. What, can you expand on that and what wasn't working?
Yes, for me, it wasn't working because it seemed like it turned out to be a small study session with presentations by staff with very little time to actually talk about what's happening on our different boards that we're liaisons on. And how does that interact with other boards or with what they want to bring forward? Does that interact with any policies we were thinking about, or?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. Yeah, I think another problem with Fridays was that a lot of us couldn't get there, especially I think you, Councilmember Peck, at the time.
I had native, yes.
Had a hard time getting there. I also just wanted to clarify, I don't really think you meant to avoid the sunshine law, because we can't avoid the sunshine law.
No,
ever,
I
ever,
said that
ever.
wrong.
Yes, the
To
Robert's
comply.
Rules of Order is what we would avoid, so that we could have more of a free discussion.
To comply with the sunshine law.
Yes, and comply with the sunshine law. So that's all I had to say, and I am for it, fitting it in somewhere, because I feel often constrained by Robert's Rules of Order and just want to talk to each other.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. I kind of brought up the pre-session idea, and maybe some other council members did too. Partially because I see it being kind of a functionality issue. If we were going to do it during a study session, would all of our microphones just be turned on? Because it'd be really awkward and wouldn't be a freewheeling conversation if you're having to continually go back and forth and turning people's mics on and off.
Good point.
And for us to have that conversation without the mics on would be a disservice to the public, both the ones in the room and the ones watching on TV. And that's why, from a function standpoint, I just thought a pre-session would probably be a little bit more feasible. Yes.
Any other thoughts on this? And, it would be up to us if we thought, we really don't need, there's no issue on this month that anyone wants to discuss so we could cancel or whatever. I just think that we need open time to sit down together and at least ask each other questions about what is this agenda about, or if, I don't know. I know that in my 6 years here, or 7 years, that there's been many times that when I get the agenda on Friday or Thursday, I don't know who to call because you can only call one person, according to the sunshine laws, to figure out, did we do this ordinance before? Here's the way I interpret it. How do you interpret it? And if that's done in the public, we could do it. So, my question is, study session or pre-session? Counselor Waters.
I think the Mayor Pro Tem's point is a good one. And I do favor that opportunity. I think it would be good for us to have, less regimented conversation or exchange. But I agree, to do it in here without the mics wouldn't be a good idea. And I think that, and the public can come and listen to that conversation if they want, so.
So those preferring a study session item, raise your hand. Seeing no one, those who would rather have a pre-session once a month. Okay, so should we start that in January or wait until after our open forum in January? Counselor McCoy.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. Are we talking just an hour ahead of study session? So instead of starting at 7 o'clock, we start at 6?
Right, or it could even just be a half hour if I don't expect us to have these real lengthy conversations, but just what's on your mind. So since we're just starting this, I don't really know the timeline. Let's set it for an hour and then, but I don't want staff to have to get dinner for us. I think that's a little overkill. What do you think? Okay, so should we start in January or do you want to start in February? See, this is new. We don't know what in the heck to do. Whoops, hang on.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. I know we probably should have started a year ago, but I think we should start in February only because of us coming back from, break and all the sessions and stuff. I think we can prepare to be ready for that one day out of that month to have that pre-session in February. That's me personally. That's my opinion.
So let's look at that calendar again, Dawn, for February and see which pre-session do we want. Harold, I see a funny look on your face.
No, I thought my mic was creating the feedback, but it was off and I just heard it again.
Ah.
So that's what we're talking about.
Oh, okay.
This is February up on the screen. So your study session is scheduled for the 7th.
So if nobody's giving their a significant other a present on Valentine's Day, we could do that. So the 21st is going to be is that not going to be a study and LHA meeting?
We were just scheduling that one as an LHA. That conversation came up a little bit later in the year, I think in March.
Okay.
But if you wanted to do it before that, we could do it before that.
Yeah, that might be a good night to do it since LHA is generally not as long as council. Is that accurate?
Plus LHA's in that room already.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's
they're
right.
already in
We
there?
wouldn't even have to move. Okay, that would be great. Does everybody consider that's a good date? Okay, we'll start there and see how it goes.
Would you like us to generally, throughout 2023, when you have an LHA Board of Commissioners meeting, use that day, or do you want to just try it in February and see how it goes?
I personally wouldn't want it to be on an LHA/study session because those are going to be long anyway. To add an hour up front would be a killer. So, I don't know, any comments on that? Counselor Hidalgo-Faring said she agrees.
We'll put it on February 21st and see how it goes.
Okay. Get your topics ready, ladies and gentlemen.
My question is, do we need specific topics, or how would you like us to?
I think council,
General.
just let council handle it, and if there's anything that they want to discuss among themselves. And then maybe as we get going, it'll change a bit. But just basically open forum with council. Yeah. Counselor Hidalgo-Faring.
So just for clarification, as you said, open forum, but what we as council members are working on, or updates from our boards and commissions where we serve as liaisons. So that's my understanding, is what will adhere to the topic, so that it really doesn't involve staff in any way. Just unlock the doors for us.
Just unlike. Oh, that's a good point. Okay, thank you so much for allowing us to have that little discussion.
As a quick note, we will have to take minutes of that conversation. And so we will, but we won't prepare anything per se.
Okay, we are now at the final call, public invited to be heard. I see two public people out there. Do you want to come to the microphone?
Thank you. Paul Tiger, 452 Dixon. Thank you. You're always doing that, pointing that at me. I know what you're doing. I wanted to ask that you meet more often. I realize that there's lots going on. And at Longmont's a big city now, and I want our council to be more attentive and meet more often. I have two things here, and one is that I was listening to Joan talk about eradicating some old ordinances, and it came up in a conversation with Sandy. In 2012, 10 years ago, marijuana became recreational. And we still have some laws on the books that we could get rid of. It's a page and a half of about a paraphernalia that you can buy at any store here. What it does do, it gives police officers probable cause, PC. So if you have one of those things on you, they can commence a search or whatever else that they're doing. So I would appreciate that we come and take a look at that. I'm sure Sandy has a list. I only have a small thing. Also, about 10 years ago, our city got involved in an investment possibility with a mall that isn't doing so well. We have certificates of participation, and I would like council members to pay attention to our indebtedness and at what point we will be able to get ourselves out of owning a mall that isn't doing well. And I appreciate that you're all here. Nice to see a full council. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Does anyone else have last-minute comments?
Lance Whitaker again, 1750 Collier Street, Longmont, Colorado. Yarborough, I would catch you anytime. Anytime, girl. I would catch you, and you could depend on that. And like the previous public speaker had said, HB 1230 that was enacted in 2020 has a lot to do with a lot of other businesses in Longmont, such as pipe shops and dispensaries and other things that would like to expand here in Longmont. It's not just me that wants this to be resolved. So, and it's really quick and could be funded by the Cannabis Cash Fund. So we wouldn't even be using Longmont dollars for it. So again, like I said, please address this law. And as for density, having ridden and been part of a balloon crew, a hot air balloon crew for 7 years, I can tell you anytime you want to see density in your town, take a hot air balloon crew or a hot air balloon ride over your city, and you will get a unique perspective that you'll never see before. It is one of a kind, unlike you've ever seen. And it really shows what kind of density you're really looking at, because you can see the brick walls that you guys are building and the old town Longmont. The old town Longmont's got lots of trees and looks like an old town. The brick wall that's going up around it is pretty distinguishable from the air. So anytime, if you all want to take a hot air balloon ride, I would recommend you guys look for Fairwinds in Boulder. I know they've got some really good pilots and they fly in this area. Longmont Hot Balloon is no longer operating in this area, so I can't fly. You have a nice day.
Thank you, Lance. Thank you for the recommendation. It's late, I can't talk. So, do we have any mayor or council comments? Councilor Waters?
Thanks, Mayor Peck. I didn't know whether to bring this up. I guess, Don, this would be for you. As we're talking about calendar, because it was only tangentially related. But I do wonder, are we planning anything in terms of a 10-year anniversary, remembering the flood and all that the progress we've made since then? Because if we are, whatever those events are, we might want to reflect, if it's something formal we're going to do, reflect in the calendar. And if we're not, I think we should. So, number one. Number two, Harold, you and I've asked several times about deliverables that the public can count on from us in terms of parks. And what does that list look like? And I understand it won't be necessarily finished products with, tied up in a bow. But I do think we've talked about, I think we're obligated to say to the public, this is what you can expect from us this year in terms of parks. And, we'll come as close as we can. And if we don't, we can explain why and what we've learned and what's going to happen in 2024. You've mentioned December as a time that we would see that. Are we still going to see something between now and the end of the month?
Yeah, I think we will. At a minimum, it's going to be more high level, but as I mentioned to you all before, we have been exploring the best value approach in a new purchasing model that other municipalities have utilized that has drastically sped up the process. And so Joni and her team and Valerie and her team from purchasing have been meeting with those folks. And so they are fine tuning. I think I mentioned a couple of meetings ago, we talked about 6 in 5 years.
Yeah.
It's now gone to 8 in 5 years. And so we'll be able to go over that and give you a sense of how we're grouping them and how we're going to approach it to learn through this in year one and then take off. So we'll bring that to you in December.
Yeah, I use the term deliverables, and it may be
Right.
benchmarks or,
Right.
what are the progress milestones, as Councilmember Martin has used that term this year, and just in the spirit of accountability. We have had some conversation, not so much, some with you, more with Joanne, but about you and about Eugene, and that is performance appraisal process. I am one, I think I'm not the only one, who has both concerns and, views about what we should be doing with performance appraisals. And we were going to hear something back in December. Is that still, not from you, but I think from Joanne? Should we still anticipate seeing some revisions to the process?
We've talked about that a little bit. I would like to work off of your retreat and your goals and really using that as setting that work. And so I'll talk to Joanne about that piece of it. I know we talked about setting those a little ahead of the retreat, and then if we have conflict in the retreat, what that looks like.
That would make sense. With this caveat, if you took the goals out of it, just what's the time frame?
Right.
Right? In any given year, when would you and Eugene and Judge Frick be putting together what your priorities are and the goals and objectives for the year, and have the council a chance to see that, and that be the primary basis for at least the central part of performance appraisal going forward. You wouldn't have to, the goals could be forthcoming, but it just look like what the structure and process is.
Okay.
And like I said, maybe I'm the only one, I don't think so, that has that concern. My last comment would be, there was a comment made just a few minutes ago about Village of the Peaks as a failed enterprise. And if anybody has looked at the financials, you would arrive at a very different conclusion. It is remarkably successful. The financials are stunning. Reserves are, and especially if we have a reporter reporting on this, that was misinformation shared a few minutes ago, and I'd hate to have that reported. Our financials are available to anybody. Paul, I'm happy to share with you the financials of Village of the Peaks. You can get it from Jim Golden. But to suggest it's not a success is simply not paying attention to the facts.
Councillor Martin.
Well, Councilmember Waters stole a little bit of my thunder, but I still want to get my oar in on the subject of truth when addressing the council, because we have, I think, as a nation, fallen into the trap of thinking that we get to say whatever we like that supports our position, regardless of whether we can back it up with facts. Mr. Tiger's statement is one of them. I find that the Village of the Peak is not aesthetically pleasing to me. I'd rather have a different kind of open-air mall, but it's making money hand over fist, and we are not, the city's indebtedness is not at issue, and I want everybody to understand that. The other thing that's been going on is that we have gone to great lengths to explain the financial stack associated with the downtown hotel. And people just, they will look you right in the eye after a painstaking explanation of that, how it's all funded with new money that will not be created unless a new enterprise comes into the city, and then they'll go right back to their talking points. I think we should all take to heart that if we're going to make progress as a city and an organization and be an equitable organization that does the right thing for people and that people do the right thing for each other, that we should hold ourselves to a higher standard than that. And, I wanted to say that before I got trained on conflict resolution.
Good point there, Councillor Martin. Councillor McCoy.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. I just wanted to, it must be mine. I just wanted to give a quick statement here. I want to first thank all of you for being so welcoming and friendly today. It's nice to be part of this council and to be back on council. As a Longmont native who has raised my family here and loves this city, I've been hearing a lot of concerns about all the development Longmont is experiencing and how it is affecting our quality of life in terms of traffic and the sense of community. Rivertown, Bond Farm development, and now the boutique hotel seems to have really caused some consternation. Residents are saying that they're feeling a little left out of the process, and the concerns about impacts to wildlife, neighborhoods, and our downtown character seem, in their opinion, to be ignored. As a high school government teacher, I want to help people feel that they can trust our government. To Councilmember Martin's point, I hope to dive deeper into how we can better hear and honor our residents and give them more agency in how Longmont operates and evolves as we grow. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Yarbrough.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. I don't have anything that heavy to say. I just really want to mention that last council meeting, I talked about the city of Brighton was at the NLC in Kansas City, and we were talking about Vision Zero, and she actually sent me those bracelets I had talked about, and so I just kind of wanted you all to see that this is what they give. These are the type of bracelets they give to their students, their kids, and maybe people who walk their elderly people who walk their dogs at night. And it's a reflecting light that people can see in the evening or when it gets dark, especially since it gets dark very early. So the assistant city manager, Karen Sarine, I believe, Sarin is her name, and she was gracious enough to send these to me. So I just wanted to thank her and also prove that what I was saying is true. Here you go. Thank you.
Find out how much they cost in bulk.
Mayor Peck, I believe we already have Erica on that, so.
Oh, fantastic. So I just wanted to give a fast update. The transportation meeting on Saturday I thought was a success. There were about 35 or more people there. And it was really an update also to the public on our work plan, which that portion of it, the transportation part, to let them know what we're doing, what we've done this year, and where we intend to go. So that's it. Do we have any comments from you, Harold, City Manager?
Comments, Mayor, Council.
City Attorney, Eugene? Okay, can we have a motion to adjourn? All those in favor, raise your hand. We are adjourned. We are adjourned.